This is our past, gentlemen. This is where we have been. This is how we got here. This is who we are today.
You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us.
It's not about that scoreboard out there. It's not about winning. It's about you and your relationship to yourself and your family and your friends.
They're strong, fast, and undefeated. So far. But I want you to remember where God has brought us. I want you to remember how hard you've worked. We weren't supposed to have a winning season, but we do. We weren't supposed to advance through the playoffs, but we did. We're not supposed to be here, but we are. So if there's anything in you that says this is a losing effort, throw it out. Because as I stand here, I believe that as long as we honor God, nothing is impossible.
Welcome back to Diggin Deeper, everyone. I'm your host, Brian Parsons, and I'm thrilled you've tuned in for another edition of Diggin Deeper into the NFL. Here at our ministry, we're proud to combine our faith with our love for sports. As a Christian ministry, our foundation remains grounded in Him. But that doesn't stop us from diving into the thrilling world of competition across leagues, especially the National Football League. The key is this: our passions never take the place of our faith. With that in mind, let's huddle up and dig deeper into the NFL. Week 16 did not disappoint. A slate packed with defining moments that tested teams, grit, and resilience. From clutch fourth-quarter drives to momentum-shifting turnovers, bone-crunching hits, and high-stakes red zone showdowns, this week was full of tell-you-who-you-are moments. On today's program, we'll break down the X's and O's, examine why teams came out on top or fell short, and highlight the plays that could shape the playoff picture as the season barrels toward its finale. Week 16 kicked off Thursday night, December 18th. Under the Thursday night lights in Week 16, the matchup carried weight far beyond the short week, shaping how both teams were viewed as the season neared its finish. This was the type of game every fan circles on the calendar. A divisional rivalry between two passionate fan bases, intensified by the fact that both clubs are among the conference's elite. Pride, positioning, and momentum converged under the lights, turning the already heated rivalry into a defining moment with postseason implications. At Lumen Field, the Seahawks pulled off one of the most unforgettable comebacks of the season, rallying from a double-digit fourth-quarter deficit to stun the Rams in overtime and claim a one-point victory in a gritty battle that held enormous NFC West and playoff significance. The Rams dominated much of the night statistically, amassing 581 total yards behind a prolific passing attack led by Matthew Stafford, who threw for 457 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Puka Nacua hauled in 12 receptions for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns, complemented by a ground game that totaled 124 yards. The Seahawks countered with 415 total yards, balancing Sam Darnold's 270 passing yards and critical throws under pressure with a dominant rushing attack that gained 171 yards, highlighted by Kenneth Walker III carrying for 164 yards and a touchdown, while Jackson Smith-Njigba caught 8 passes for 96 yards and a touchdown. Both teams averaged about 6.5 yards per play, showcasing the efficiency and explosiveness of their offenses. Penalties and turnovers played a key role. Los Angeles was flagged multiple times, prolonging Seattle drives, while the Seahawks capitalized on mistakes at crucial moments. Time of possession further told the story, with the Rams holding the ball for over 40 minutes and 33 seconds, while the Seahawks controlled the clock for 26 minutes and 14 seconds. But the Seahawks maximized their opportunities in shorter, efficient drives. Several pivotal moments swung the game, including a long punt return that sparked the Seahawks' comeback, multiple successful two-point conversions that erased the Rams' lead, and back-and-forth scoring that forced overtime. In the extra period, both teams traded touchdowns before Seattle converted the decisive two-point play, sealing the thrilling victory and vaulting them atop the NFC West. In a contest remembered for dramatic swings, creative scoring, and high-wire execution, the Seahawks' resilience earned them the win and a key position in the playoff hunt, while the Rams were left to reflect on a performance defined by offensive dominance but undermined by red zone failures and late miscues. Coming into the Week 16 Thursday night matchup, both the Seahawks and the Rams were fighting not just for divisional pride, but also for positioning in the NFC playoff picture. Seattle entered the game with a record that kept them in contention for the top spot in the NFC West, but left little margin for error, meaning a loss could have dropped them behind the Rams and made the path to a playoff bye far more complicated. The Rams, meanwhile, were looking to solidify their hold on the division lead and secure a favorable seed in the postseason, aiming to protect home field advantage and gain momentum heading into the final weeks of the season. After the dramatic overtime victory, the Seahawks vaulted to the top of the NFC West, seizing the division lead and giving themselves a clearer path to a playoff berth, with control over tiebreakers. The win also provided a confidence boost and a sense of momentum that could carry into the final games of the regular season. For the Rams, the loss was a significant setback. Despite their dominance in total yards and offensive production, their inability to close out the game left them one game behind Seattle in the division standings, and forced them to fight harder in the final weeks to secure a playoff position and potentially maintain home field advantage in the opening round. The outcome underscored how thin the margins are in the NFC West, and how a single night of high drama can reshape the postseason landscape for both teams. This is the essence of December football, where momentum swings with every play and each game carries heightened importance, whether it's battling for playoff positioning and seeding, or simply keeping a season alive. Even for teams whose postseason hopes have long faded, the stakes remain significant, as draft positioning becomes a focus and evaluations of players and coaches often take precedence over the win-loss column. What a way to kick off Week 16 in the NFL. In a pivotal Saturday evening matchup featuring two NFC East rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles traveled to Norwest Stadium in Summerfield to take on the Washington Commanders. At the conclusion, the Eagles secured a 29-18 victory over the Washington Commanders, and the win meant the Eagles clinched their second consecutive division title, the first repeat by an NFC East team in 21 years. Philadelphia rallied after a sluggish start, turned momentum with key second-half plays, and ultimately asserted control to claim the NFC East crown, while leaving Washington looking further into next season, with many questions to answer, including health concerns surrounding Jaden Daniels. Statistically, the Eagles dominated the night. Philadelphia outgained the Commanders 385-220 in total net yards, benefiting from a balanced attack that combined 178 passing yards and 207 rushing yards. Ertz completed 22 of 30 passes for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, while Barkley carried 21 times for 132 yards and a touchdown, leading a potent ground game. A.J. Brown paced the receiving corps with 9 catches for 95 yards, and Cooper DeJean provided a defensive spark with an interception that swung field position in Philadelphia's favor. Washington's offense, hampered by injuries and inconsistency, managed 90 rushing yards and 130 passing yards. Backup quarterback Josh Johnson and starter Marcus Mariota combined for 138 passing yards, with Johnson throwing an interception. The Commanders' lone offensive touchdowns came on the ground, but their unit struggled to sustain drives against a physical Eagles defense. In terms of time of possession, the Eagles controlled the clock for 34 minutes and 7 seconds, to Washington's 25 minutes and 53 seconds, a reflection of long, sustained drives that kept the Commanders' offense off the field. Penalties were relatively even, with both teams flagged 5 times, Philly for 61 yards and Washington for 44 yards. But the Eagles made theirs count in key situations. The game was also marked by late-game emotions boiling over. After Barkley's successful 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter, a skirmish erupted that resulted in 3 players being ejected for unnecessary roughness, underscoring the intensity of the rivalry and the stakes of the division matchup. Philadelphia's win not only brought the division trophy back to the city of brotherly love, but also continued their recent NFC dominance and set the stage for their playoff push. For Washington, the defeat was another tough chapter in a season riddled with injuries and inconsistency, as the Commanders fell to 4-11 on the year. The Green Bay Packers traded in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, traveling to Chicago to take on their NFC North rival, the Chicago Bears, in a near-frozen Soldiers Field in the second Saturday contest of Week 16. Without question, this was a fun game from start to finish, and regulation was not enough. Of course it wasn't. It was almost like a script. In one of the most dramatic and emotionally charged NFC North battles of the season, the Chicago Bears pulled off a stunning 22-16 overtime victory over the Green Bay Packers. While this game had an exciting ending, Green Bay led 6-0 at halftime. The game had a familiar feel of smash mouth wear the other guys out football these two teams have been known for, especially against one another. The Packers struck first and appeared in control for much of the first 3 quarters. Green Bay kicked 2 field goals in the second quarter to build a 6-0 lead, then extended it in the third when backup quarterback Malik Willis, playing after starter Jordan Love exited with a concussion in the second quarter, hit Romeo Doubs for a 33-yard touchdown. When Love left the game, he had completed 8 of 13 passes for 77 yards. Chicago managed just a long Cairo Santos field goal in the third quarter, and the Packers still led 9-3 heading into the fourth. The Bears began their comeback in the fourth quarter, with Santos connecting on a 51-yard field goal and Chicago's defense tightening up. Facing a 16-13 deficit late in regulation, the Bears recovered an onside kick, a pivotal momentum shift that breathed life into their hopes. Quarterback Caleb Williams then marched the offense downfield and, on 4th and goal from the 6-yard line, delivered a clutch pass to Zayday Walker for the tying touchdown that sent the game to overtime. In overtime, Chicago won the toss and elected to receive. After a defensive stop, Williams connected on a 46-yard walk-off touchdown pass to DJ Moore, capping one of the most improbable rally wins in franchise history and sending Soldier Field into a frenzy. On offense, Williams played beyond his years. Rather than a second-year quarterback, he's playing like a veteran, as he is poised under pressure, which was a major theme for this game, especially in the fourth quarter and overtime, while Santos' long field goals kept the Bears within striking distance throughout the night. For Green Bay, Willis filled in admirably after Love's departure, keeping drives alive with both his arm and legs, and helping the Packers maintain the lead deep into the second half. Statistically, the two teams were remarkably even on the night. Chicago finished with 400 total net yards to Green Bay's 384, with the Bears converting big plays when it mattered most. The Packers held a significant edge in time of possession, controlling the ball for 38 minutes and 57 seconds, to Chicago's 26 minutes and 13 seconds. Chicago was burdened by 10 penalties for 105 yards, while Green Bay had 4 penalties for 40 yards. A discrepancy that reflected Chicago's aggressive style and occasional discipline issues. In fact, Chicago doubled Green Bay in penalty yards, and Green Bay controlled the clock 12 minutes more. The Chicago is another illustration that victory is more about execution than the stat book. On paper, Chicago should not have won this game, but the scoreboard is the ultimate decider. Moving on to Sunday afternoon's slate of games, the Dallas Cowboys hosted the Los Angeles Chargers at AT&T Stadium. And by the game's end, the Chargers delivered a commanding 34-17 victory over the Dallas Cowboys. The Chargers used a dominant second-half performance to pull away from a stubborn Dallas squad. The win kept Los Angeles firmly in the AFC playoff hunt and marked another disappointing step in a frustrating season for the Cowboys, who were already eliminated from postseason contention entering the game. The Cowboys drew first blood, with Dak Prescott connecting with Ryan Flournoy on a 5-yard touchdown pass early in the first quarter to stake Dallas to a 7-0 lead. But the Chargers responded quickly. Quentin Johnston hauled in a 23-yard touchdown from Justin Herbert to knot the game at 7. In the second quarter, Brandon Aubrey split the uprights from 33 yards, and the Bolts pushed ahead when Herbert found Ladd McConkey from 25 yards for a score. Dallas briefly regained the lead on George Pickens' 38-yard Prescott touchdown strike, but the Chargers closed the half strongly when Herbert scrambled in from 1 yard out on a lengthy 81-yard drive, giving Los Angeles a 21-17 advantage at the break. From that point on, the Chargers took control. In the third quarter, kicker Cameron Dicker added a 37-yard field goal, and in the fourth he tacked on another from 27 yards to extend the lead. Omarion Hampton capped the scoring with a 5-yard rushing touchdown, helping LA shut out Dallas in the second half. The Cowboys, who managed a strong first half, were held scoreless after halftime, as the Chargers' balanced attack and stout defense took over. Statistically, Los Angeles outgained Dallas and controlled the pace of play. The Chargers finished with a time of possession edge of roughly 34 minutes and 27 seconds to 25 minutes and 33 seconds, reflecting their ability to sustain drives and keep Dallas offense off the field in key stretches. Offensively, Herbert was efficient and productive, completing 23 of 29 passes for 300 yards and 2 touchdown throws, while also adding a rushing score on the ground. Quentin Johnston's 104 receiving yards and a touchdown highlighted the Chargers' aerial attack, while Omarion Hampton contributed effectively from the backfield. On defense, Los Angeles limited Dallas, production after intermission, holding the Cowboys to 0 points in the second half. Dallas, meanwhile, showed flashes early. Prescott's deep connection with George Pickens and the early touchdown to Flournoy kept them competitive early, but ultimately couldn't sustain drives or respond once Los Angeles seized momentum. The Cowboys' finish dropped them to 6 wins, 8 losses, and 1 defeat on the season, with inconsistent defense and an inability to score late in games proving costly. On penalty and discipline fronts, the Chargers' sharper execution helped them overcome a typically physical Dallas team. While exact flag totals vary by source, Los Angeles maintained fewer costly mistakes and converted their opportunities into points, whereas Dallas struggled for consistency after halftime. The Chargers' win was characterized by balanced offense, efficient quarterback play, and a second-half defensive clampdown, making this one of their most complete performances of the 2025 campaign and keeping their postseason hopes alive as the season heads into its final stretch. On Sunday afternoon at MetLife Stadium, the Minnesota Vikings traveled to East Rutherford and eked out a hard-fought 16-13 victory over the New York Giants, narrowly edging the home team in a game largely dictated by defense and field position. The win snapped a brief skid for Minnesota while extending the Giants' losing streak to 9 games, leaving New York still searching for offensive consistency late in a challenging season. At halftime, the game was close, with Minnesota holding a 13-10 lead, and both teams added a field goal in the fourth quarter to finalize the 16-13 Minnesota victory. Offensively, the Vikings were mostly contained, finishing with 126 passing yards and 114 rushing yards. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy, hampered by injuries and limited efficiency, completed 9 of 14 passes for 108 yards, while rookie Max Brosmer added 52 yards on 7 of 9 passing. Despite the modest aerial output, Minnesota was able to grind out just enough offense to maintain the lead. Justin Jefferson paced the receiving corps with 85 yards on 6 catches, while Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones Sr. contributed steady gains on the ground. The Giants' offense struggled mightily, with Jackson Dart completing 7 of 13 passes for just 33 yards, and New York finishing with a season-low 141 total yards and no offensive touchdowns. Time of possession slightly favored Minnesota, 31 minutes and 1 second to New York's 28 minutes and 59 seconds, as the Vikings were able to sustain longer drives and keep the Giants' struggling offense off the field during critical stretches. While the clock difference wasn't extreme, Minnesota's success on key third downs, converting 7 of 12 compared to New York's 2 of 10, helped swing momentum. The Vikings recorded 17 first downs to the Giants' 12, further reflecting their ability to move the chains when it mattered. Penalties also influenced the game's flow, with both teams committing 11 flags. Minnesota for 90 yards, New York for 74. The Giants' defense was penalized on several crucial third downs, while Minnesota's mistakes, though fewer, proved costly in a tight, low-scoring contest. While the final score was close, the game itself was far from thrilling. It had the feel of a slow-motion accident. Not necessarily good football, but captivating in its own way. On a sunny Sunday afternoon at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, the Cincinnati Bengals delivered a dominant performance in a 45-21 victory over the Miami Dolphins, putting together one of their most complete outings of the 2025 season. What began as a competitive first half turned into a second-half eruption by Cincinnati, fueled by elite quarterback play, explosive scoring drives, and opportunistic defense. First half. The Dolphins and Bengals traded blows early in a spirited first half. Cincinnati struck first when Joe Burrow connected with T. Higgins on a 9-yard touchdown, giving the visitors an early advantage. Miami responded in kind, as Devon Achane broke free for a 48-yard rushing touchdown, showcasing his speed and giving the Dolphins a share of momentum. The back-and-forth continued. Evan McPherson added a field goal for Cincinnati, and Miami answered with a 9-yard rushing touchdown from Malik Washington that gave the home team a halftime lead. Despite some back-and-forth scoring, the first half ended with both teams showing they could strike quickly and force the opponent to adjust. Second half. The turning point came after the break, when the Bengals exploded for 35 unanswered points. Burrow, back in rhythm after missing significant time with injury earlier in the season, was surgical in the second half. He finished the day 25 of 32 for 309 yards and 4 touchdown passes with no interceptions, posting a gaudy passer rating and slicing through the Miami secondary all afternoon. Cincinnati's scoring barrage featured a balanced attack, Sumai Pe Arine punched in a goal line rushing touchdown, and the passing game connected on multiple strikes of 20-plus yards as the Dolphins' defense struggled to adjust. For Miami, rookie cornerback Quinn Ewers made his first career start. Ewers showed flashes of potential in his debut, throwing for 260 yards with 1 touchdown. But he also struggled with 2 critical interceptions and faced pressure from Cincinnati's aggressive pass rush, which disrupted timing and limited Miami's ability to sustain drives. Despite his best efforts, the rookie quarterback could not keep pace with the Bengals' explosive second-half surge. Turnovers by Miami, including multiple interceptions and a Dolphins fumble, swung field position decisively in Cincinnati's favor and set up short fields for the Bengals' offense, helping sustain their dominant run. The Bengals' offense was fully led by Burrow, who rebounded from an earlier tough outing with precision passing and timely decision-making. Miami, meanwhile, started rookie quarterback Quinn Ewers after benching Tua Tagovailoa, a major season narrative as the Dolphins continue their search for stability under center. Ewers threw for approximately 260 yards with 1 touchdown, but was hampered by 2 critical interceptions, reflecting both his moments of promise and growing pains at the NFL level. A handful of Dolphins starters, including safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, CAF, and a host of offensive linemen and receivers, were inactive for the game, further complicating Miami's ability to adjust on defense. Cincinnati's statistical dominance was clear by the final whistle. The Bengals tallied 407 total net yards to Miami's 389, with 302 passing yards and 105 rushing yards on 26 carries. Miami's offense finished with 260 passing yards and 129 rushing yards, but the Dolphins were unable to match Cincinnati's explosiveness. The Bengals also controlled the time of possession, 31 minutes and 32 minutes, to 28 minutes and 28 seconds, and converted a far stronger 6 of 12 on third downs, compared with just 2 of 10 for Miami. Both teams executed efficiently on scoring chances inside the red zone, Miami 2 for 2 and Cincinnati 6 for 6, but turnovers and explosive plays swung the game decisively to Cincinnati. Turnovers were a decisive factor. Miami's 3 takeaways turned into short fields and points for the Bengals, while Cincinnati protected the ball completely, with 0 turnovers. Penalties were minimal but did influence field position. The Dolphins were flagged for more yards overall, a reflection of struggles in discipline and assignment on key snaps. Honestly, it would be hard to say this win was a statement win for the Bengals, as both franchises are in similar situations. The Bengals improved their record and snapped a short skid while showcasing Burrow's elite ability when the supporting cast is clicking. For the Dolphins, the loss highlighted continuing turnover issues and more pains regardless who is under center. With rookie quarterback Quinn Ewers under center, it probably means further growing pains for a Dolphins fanbase hungry for some type of hope, as the Dolphins cannot win big games, especially in cold weather, against good teams, which is nothing new, but with Quinn under center, this adds another storyline that will carry into the final weeks of the season as Miami evaluates personnel and direction. Fans who stuck through the first half were treated to a second-half offensive clinic by Cincinnati that swung from competitive to dominant before the final whistle blew. While Tua Tagovailoa was not injured, his status as the Dolphins' starter is clearly in question. After starting on Monday night against Pittsburgh and being benched in favor of rookie Quinn Ewers for Week 16, it appears Miami may be moving in a new direction at quarterback. The move reflects the team's desire for a fresh evaluation of its offensive leadership, as Tua's inconsistent performances and the team's struggles in critical moments have prompted the coaching staff to explore alternatives before the postseason. Ewers' first career start against Cincinnati offered a glimpse of potential, even as he faced the challenges of stepping into a high-pressure environment for the first time. In a pivotal NFC South battle down in Charlotte, the Carolina Panthers edged the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-20 on Sunday in a game with division lead and playoff implications on the line. Carolina's clutch late-game execution and opportunistic defense helped take sole possession of first place in the division, while Tampa Bay's offense, which had seemed resurgent at times this season, came up just short in a contest marked by big moments and narrow margins. The Panthers grabbed the early momentum on a Ryan Fitzgerald 27-yard field goal, answering Tampa Bay's opening response when Baker Mayfield found Mike Evans for a 1-yard touchdown to make it 7-3. The Bucs leaned heavily on the ground game throughout the first half, a strategy that would define much of their offensive script, while Mayfield and his young receiving corps worked to establish rhythm through the air. Chase McLaughlin added a 23-yard field goal for Tampa Bay to cut the deficit, but Carolina closed the second quarter strong with a 41-yard Fitzgerald field goal and a 22-yard touchdown from Bryce Young to Tetairoa McMillan, giving the Panthers a 13-10 lead at halftime. The second half saw Tampa Bay's ground attack continue to churn, with Bucky Irving leading the Bucs offense with 71 rushing yards on 19 carries, and Sean Tucker punching in a 1-yard rushing touchdown to again put Tampa Bay in front, 17-13. Rachaad White added a burst of his own with 45 rushing yards, including a long 39-yard run that set up momentum swings throughout the afternoon. However, Carolina responded through a balanced attack that featured Bryce Young's poise in the pocket, as he completed 21 of 32 passes for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns, spreading the ball to his top targets, such as Tetairoa McMillan, who finished with 73 receiving yards and a touchdown. Late in the fourth, the Panthers tied the game at 20-20, and Fitzgerald's 48-yard field goal with just over 2 minutes remaining ultimately provided the decisive margin, as Tampa Bay's final drive ended in disappointment when Mayfield's pass was intercepted by Lathan Ransom with 42 seconds left. Baker Mayfield finished 18 of 26 for 145 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception, showing moments of accuracy, but also an inability to sustain offensive consistency at key moments. The Panthers, Bryce Young was efficient and clutch, doing just enough to keep Carolina ahead in the division race. There were no major in-game injuries reported that significantly altered either team's personnel usage, but the Buccaneers' offense has been hampered recently by a series of health issues earlier in the season, including injuries to receivers and offensive linemen that have disrupted continuity. Offensively, the Buccaneers finished with 296 total net yards to Carolina's 275. But they surrendered the ball at the worst possible time and couldn't convert enough explosive plays to stay ahead. Tampa Bay's rushing attack was formidable for much of the afternoon, totaling 169 yards on 33 carries, 5.1 yards per carry, tied for one of their better ground performances of the year, while Mayfield added 49 rushing yards on scrambles as he worked to make plays happen. Carolina's ground game was more modest but complementary, led by Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, as the Panthers balanced their attack. Time of possession slightly favored the Buccaneers at 34 minutes and 36 seconds, to Carolina's 25 minutes and 24 seconds, a testament to Tampa Bay's ability to move the chains on the ground, though that control did not translate into enough points when it mattered most. Tampa Bay was flagged 8 times for 56 yards, while Carolina was a cleaner 5 times for 30 yards. Discipline on both sides had a subtle impact on key third down and late-game situations. This was a classic NFC South slugfest, physical, tense, and filled with situational drama. Carolina's victory improved their record to 8-7 and put them in prime position atop the division, with 2 games remaining, a slot they haven't consistently occupied in years. It's the first time since 2022 that the Panthers have beaten Tampa Bay, and only the second time they finished above 7 wins in a season since that stretch. Meanwhile, the Bucs dropped to 7-8 and saw their grip on first place slip, marking their 6th loss in 7 games and threatening their once bright playoff outlook. If Tampa Bay can regroup and win in Week 17 at Miami, they'll still have a shot to force a winner-take-all NFC South rematch with Carolina in Week 18. But the pressure is now squarely on Todd Bowles and his staff to steady the ship. This NFC South matchup was about more than just one game. It was about momentum, identity, and the kind of resilience every playoff contender needs when the margins are razor thin. Carolina now holds the advantage, but the division race is far from over. In a Sunday afternoon matchup at the Caesars Superdome, the New Orleans Saints delivered a commanding 29-6 victory over the New York Jets, rolling to their 3rd straight win, while the Jets' struggles continued in a frustrating 2025 season. The Saints' balanced attack and opportunistic defense controlled both halves of this showdown from start to finish, leaving New York searching for answers as time expired. The opening quarter was a low-scoring affair, dominated by defense and field position. The Jets struck first when Nick Folk drilled a 29-yard field goal on their opening drive to take a 3-0 lead. New Orleans answered as Charlie Smith connected from 35 yards to tie the game at 3. In the second quarter, both teams traded field goals. Smith, 49 and 36 yards, for the Saints, and Folk, 36 yards, for New York. And the half ended with the Saints ahead 9-6. For most people, this is probably the type of performance expected. The second half saw the Saints' offense seize control, and the Jets' offensive rhythm collapse. Rookie quarterback Tyler Shuck, in just his second start, completed 32 of 49 passes for 308 yards and a touchdown, showing poise and command of the offense. Shuck's key connection came on a 23-yard touchdown pass to Chris Olave, giving New Orleans a 16-6 lead early in the third quarter. Smith continued to move the Saints' offense with his leg, and later in the fourth quarter Taysom Hill threw a 38-yard touchdown pass to Olave, sealing the rout. The Jets' lone scoring came on Folks' field goals, and New York failed to find the end zone in the second half. New Orleans' offensive success was anchored by Shuck's career-high passing yardage and the explosive playmaking of Chris Olave, who finished with 10 receptions for 148 yards and 2 touchdowns. Shuck's efficient decision-making helped sustain long drives and kept the Jets off balance. On the other side, Jets rookie Brady Cook completed 22 of 35 passes for 188 yards with 1 interception, but was under constant pressure, as New Orleans' pass rush stacked up 8 sacks and forced multiple negative plays. The final statistics highlighted the divergence in performance. The Saints finished with 412 total net yards, nearly 2.1 times the Jets' 195 total yards, showcasing New Orleans' ability to move the ball both on the ground and through the air. Show's passing attack accounted for much of that output, while the Jets managed modest production despite Cook's efforts. New York's ground game was limited, with Breece Hall rushing for 54 yards on 16 carries, and the Jets were held to just 64 total rushing yards as a team. The Jets were flagged 7 times for 54 yards, compared with the Saints' 3 penalties for 30 yards, an edge that helped New Orleans maintain favorable field position throughout the afternoon. Time of possession was also tilted toward the home team, with the Saints holding the ball 31 minutes and 18 seconds to 28 minutes and 42 seconds, reflecting sustained drives that kept the Jets' struggling offense off the field at critical moments. Turnovers played a key role in widening the gap. The Jets coughed up possession via both an interception and a fumble, each of which set up New Orleans with short fields that translated into points or field goal opportunities for Smith. The Saints protected the ball effectively and capitalized on New York's miscues, further amplifying the statistical disparity. This Week 16 matchup was a stark display of the contrasting arcs for these two franchises. The Saints, now 5-10, have shown resilience and flashes of offensive cohesion under Shuck, while the Jets slumped to 3-12, lamenting offensive inconsistency and their continued search for an identity at quarterback. New Orleans' win was thorough, not only in scoreboard margin, but also across the stat sheet, and signaled momentum the Saints hope to carry into the season's final weeks. Though the final score suggests domination, the Saints' balanced attack, from big plays in the passing game to disciplined special teams execution and a defense that harried New York into submission, underscored why this game was lopsided from start to finish. The Saints have won 3 in a row and have a little reason, it feels, for optimism. Have the Saints finally uncovered their quarterback of the future in Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck, or will the coaching staff continue to deploy the two as a situational combination, leaning on each player's strengths as the season winds down? Rattler's arm talent and off-script creativity contrast with Shuck's composure, accuracy, and command of the offense, giving New Orleans intriguing options as it evaluates long-term answers at the position. Just as important, this evolving quarterback situation may be the clearest window yet for Kellen Moore to showcase the offensive brilliance he displayed in Dallas, as the Saints' scheme has shown improved spacing, rhythm, and adaptability. Whether Moore is building around a single long-term starter or molding a flexible system that maximizes both quarterbacks, the closing stretch of the season could define not only the Saints' direction under center, but also Moore's standing as one of the league's most creative offensive minds. In a tightly contested AFC matchup at Huntington Bank Field, the Buffalo Bills edged the Cleveland Browns 23-20 in Week 16, keeping alive their push toward another postseason berth, while the Browns continued to grind despite a painful injury and late-game near comeback. The Bills improved to 11-4, moving closer to clinching a 7th consecutive playoff spot, while Cleveland fell to 3-12, but showed enough fight to make this one of the more competitive games on its 2025 slate. The Browns struck first on a meticulously executed opening drive when Shedeur Sanders hit rookie tight end Harold Fannin Jr. on a 13-yard touchdown pass to take a 7-0 lead. Sanders, at Tunes, looked poised, using his mobility and timing to move Cleveland's attack early. But Buffalo responded immediately. On the very next possession, James Cook broke free for a 44-yard rushing touchdown, tying the game at 7-7 and establishing the running game as the backbone of the Bills' offense. The second quarter saw Buffalo expand its advantage. After forcing a Browns field goal, the Bills leaned on the ground game once more, with Cook finishing off a methodical drive with a 3-yard rushing touchdown to make it 20-10. A 24-yard field goal by Andre Schmidt brought Cleveland within reach by halftime, 20-13, as both teams traded momentum in an increasingly physical first 30 minutes. The third quarter proved pivotal. Buffalo's defense stiffened, holding Cleveland to just 3 points in the second half, while the Browns' offensive rhythm dipped. Bills kicker Michael Badgley connected on a 41-yard field goal, extending the lead to 23-13 before a late Browns score. A 30-yard Schmout field goal set up a tense final stretch at 23-20. Despite 2 turnovers and a critical interception by the Bills, Jordan Poyer that flipped field position, and ultimately the score, the Browns had one last chance in the final minutes. A key intentional grounding penalty against Sanders pushed Cleveland out of striking range, and Buffalo was able to kneel out the clock to secure the narrow win. Bills quarterback Josh Allen returned from a minor leg injury, completing 12 of 19 passes for 130 yards, with no touchdowns or interceptions. While his passing numbers weren't eye-popping, Allen was efficient in key moments and contributed 17 rushing yards, helping manage the game and relieve pressure on his defense. For the Browns, Shedeur Sanders completed 20 of 29 passes for 157 yards, with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. The rookie also led Cleveland in rushing with 49 yards on 4 carries, demonstrating poise and athleticism, but also the inexperience that showed up in critical moments. Perhaps the most heartbreaking development for Cleveland was the serious leg injury to running back Quinshon Judkins, who left the game early and was carted off after suffering a broken leg and dislocated ankle. His absence robbed the Browns of one of their most explosive playmakers, and one they could ill afford to lose for the remainder of the season. Despite the close final score, the stat sheet reflected 2 very different offensive approaches. Buffalo finished with 259 total net yards, including 164 rushing yards and a modest 95 passing yards, testament to the dominance of their ground game. Cleveland, meanwhile, posted 294 total net yards with balanced production, 134 passing, 160 rushing yards, led by Sanders, mobility and contributions from multiple ball carriers. Time of possession tilted toward the Browns at 35 minutes and 23 seconds to 24 minutes and 37 seconds, as Cleveland sustained longer drives but couldn't convert them into enough points when it mattered most. Both teams were even in penalties, with 5 apiece, though the 44 penalty yards by Cleveland slightly undercut momentum at critical points. Cleveland showed efficiency on third downs, converting 8 of 14, while Buffalo struggled early, going 2 of 8 before tightening up in key situations to force punts and turnovers. This game was emblematic of the 2025 Bills, strong enough to grind out wins even when their passing attack isn't clicking, and resilient enough on defense to make timely stops. For Buffalo, the victory strengthened their hold on the AFC East race and brought them closer to locking up a postseason berth. For the Browns, despite the loss, there were bright moments. Sanders showed flashes of potential. Fannin continued his emergence as a reliable target, and Cleveland's defense kept the home team in the game down the stretch. However, Judkins' injury is a brutal blow to a young roster, and mistakes at key moments, including turnovers, proved costly. While the final 23-20 score suggests a classic AFC barn burner, the statistical story reveals a game shaped by run dominance, clock control, defensive resilience, and just enough offensive execution by Buffalo to hold off a motivated Cleveland squad. In a surprising Week 16 matchup at Nissan Stadium, the Tennessee Titans delivered an emphatic 26-9 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, handing the defending champs another loss in one of their most puzzling seasons in probably 2 decades. Tennessee's balanced attack and aggressive defense set the tone from the opening kickoff, while Kansas City's offense, already out of the playoff race, failed to find traction on the road. The Chiefs, without Patrick Mahomes, turned to veteran journeyman Gardner Minshew. The opening quarter was scoreless, as both offenses worked to establish rhythm. The Titans struck first, just before halftime, with a 54-yard Harrison Butker field goal for Kansas City sandwiched between Tennessee scoring plays, but Tennessee responded with a 7-yard touchdown pass from Cam Ward to Chig Okonkwo to take a 9-6 lead into halftime. Minshew only threw 8 passes before leaving for injury, where Chris Oladokun took over. Tennessee seized control after intermission. Ward continued to manage the offense efficiently, mixing runs and precision passes to sustain lengthy drives. The Titans added a rushing touchdown from Tyjae Spears and another field goal to push the lead into the teens, while the Chiefs could only add a late Harrison Butker field goal in the third quarter. Kansas City's offense struggled to convert in the red zone, and Tennessee's defense kept the pressure consistent. With Patrick Mahomes sidelined due to a torn ACL, Kansas City rotated quarterbacks, but neither could ignite the Kansas City passing game, finishing with modest yardage and an inability to sustain drives. Ward's performance illustrated Tennessee's commitment to consistency. He managed the game effectively without major mistakes. Tennessee outgained Kansas City in key second-half moments, controlling time of possession with sustained drives that kept the Chiefs' playmakers on the sidelines. The Titans also won critical third-down battles and protected the ball, While the Chiefs were unable to generate explosive plays through the air, penalties were a factor for both sides but did not dramatically shift the flow. Tennessee controlled the game statistically and physically, finishing with 367 total yards compared to Kansas City's 133. Cam Ward finished the day 21 of 28 for 228 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. Chris Oladokun finished the day with 111 yards on the day. The Titans leaned on balance, compiling 212 passing yards and 164 rushing yards, consistently winning early downs and staying ahead of the chains. Kansas City struggled to generate explosive plays, totaling just 82 passing yards and 54 rushing yards, and failed to reach the end zone. Time of possession favored Tennessee, who held the ball 38 minutes and 1 second to 21 minutes and 59 seconds, allowing the Titans to dictate tempo throughout the second half. Penalties were relatively even, with the Chiefs flagged 10 times for 59 yards and the Titans 12 times for 82 yards. But Tennessee's efficiency on third down, 9 for 17, and red zone execution proved decisive as they converted 3 of 4 opportunities into points. From the Titans' perspective, in a season where they have been moaning the Blues very similar to their two-tone jerseys, this win gave Tennessee a signature victory and snapped a frustrating streak, giving fans hope as the Titans look to build momentum into the season's final weeks. The Chiefs, finishing 6-9, will now turn the page toward roster evaluation and quarterback decisions in the offseason. In a tightly contested matchup at NRG Stadium, the Houston Texans escaped with a narrow 23-21 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders, holding off a late surge and keeping their playoff hopes alive. The game was close from start to finish, with both teams trading momentum and answering scores, but a handful of critical moments ultimately tilted the outcome in Houston's favor. While the Raiders matched the Texans physically and statistically for much of the afternoon, missed opportunities and costly mistakes proved decisive in a game that easily could have swung the other way. The quarterback matchup featured Geno Smith for the Raiders against C.J. Stroud for the Texans, and it unfolded as a tightly balanced duel. Smith finished the afternoon 20 of 33 for 201 passing yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, operating efficiently and keeping Las Vegas within striking distance throughout the game. Stroud countered with a composed performance of his own, completing 18 of 29 passes for 187 yards with 1 touchdown and no interceptions, relying on timing and decision-making rather than explosive plays. While neither quarterback posted gaudy numbers, both managed the game effectively, and the outcome ultimately hinged on defensive execution and situational football rather than quarterback dominance. Statistically, the Raiders actually held the edge. Las Vegas finished with 315 total yards, compared to Houston's 270. The Raiders' offense was balanced, producing 170 passing yards and 145 rushing yards, with several sustained drives that chewed up clock and flipped field position. Rookie running back Ashton Jeanty compiled an impressive game, running for 128 yards on the ground with a touchdown, and caught a pass for 60 yards that went the distance for a touchdown. Houston countered with 187 passing yards and 83 rushing yards, relying more on situational execution than raw volume. While neither team consistently dominated the line of scrimmage, the Raiders' inability to convert yardage into touchdowns ultimately kept them chasing the game. The Raiders held the ball for 28 minutes and 14 seconds, with the Texans controlling the clock 31 minutes and 46 seconds. While the Raiders responded with big plays and 2 touchdown passes, a costly interception and several penalties stalled promising drives. Late in the game, Houston delivered the decisive sequence, with a long run that flipped field position and a short touchdown pass, followed by a crucial third down conversion that allowed the Texans to run out the clock. In the end, turnover-free football and situational execution outweighed the Raiders' yardage edge and proved decisive for Houston. With this victory, the Texans continued their impressive winning streak and remained within striking distance of AFC South frontrunner Jacksonville. The primary turning point came early, with a defensive interception returned for a touchdown, giving Houston a momentum boost that proved critical. Las Vegas countered with explosive plays and multiple scoring drives, but a key interception and costly penalties undermined their comeback efforts. Late in the game, Houston sealed the win with a pivotal drive featuring a long run to flip field position, a short touchdown pass, and a crucial third down conversion that allowed them to drain the clock. In the end, mistake-free football and timely execution enabled the Texans to secure the win and keep pace in the AFC South race. On a brisk Sunday afternoon at Empower Field at Mile High, the Jacksonville Jaguars traveled to Denver and handed the Broncos a 34-20 setback, snapping Denver's 11-game winning streak in a pivotal AFC clash. Jacksonville's balanced offensive attack and opportunistic defense propelled the road team to a statement victory that bolstered its playoff positioning and shook up the race atop the AFC standings. The Jaguars set the tone early with a 12-yard touchdown pass from Trevor Lawrence to Parker Washington, giving Jacksonville a 7-0 lead after the first quarter. Denver evened the score in the second quarter on a 15-yard touchdown connection from Bo Nix to Courtland Sutton, and added a 54-yard field goal to briefly take a 10-7 cushion. But Jacksonville responded before halftime with another Lawrence touchdown pass to Brenton Strange and a 47-yard field goal from Cam Little, heading to the locker room with a 17-10 advantage. In the second half, the Jaguars stretched their lead behind a trio of touchdowns, including another Lawrence scoring pass and a 10-yard strike to Travis Etienne Jr., before Little added one more field goal late to seal the 34-20 road victory. The second half belonged almost entirely to the Jaguars, who took control after a closely contested first 30 minutes. Jacksonville's defense tightened up, limiting Denver to just 10 second-half points, while forcing key turnovers that swung momentum. On offense, Trevor Lawrence continued his efficient play, spreading the ball to multiple targets and mixing in timely rushes to sustain drives. Travis Etienne Jr. and Lawrence both scored touchdowns on the ground, and Cam Little added a long field goal, helping Jacksonville extend their lead. Denver struggled to respond, failing to convert critical third downs and turning the ball over at inopportune moments, allowing the Jaguars to pull away to a 34-20 victory. The second half highlighted Jacksonville's balance and poise as they combined defensive pressure, a steady rushing attack, and timely passing to secure the road win. Offensively, the Jaguars produced 346 yards on 68 plays, with Lawrence spreading the ball efficiently and Parker Washington pacing the receiving corps with a big day. Jacksonville also maintained a steady ground attack that kept the chains moving and limited the Broncos' defensive opportunities. Jacksonville's offense was paced by quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who delivered a standout performance against one of the league's toughest defenses. Lawrence completed 23 of 36 pass attempts for 279 yards and 3 passing touchdowns, adding a rushing touchdown on the ground as well. Travis Etienne Jr. led the Jaguars on the ground with 50 yards on 16 carries, providing consistent movement between the tackles and helping sustain key drives. Trevor Lawrence also contributed on the ground, finishing with 20 rushing yards and a touchdown on 6 carries, turning a goal line opportunity into points, while Josh Myers chipped in with a short gain, rounding out Jacksonville's run game production. In total, the Jaguars amassed 81 rushing yards, combining balance with their passing attack and keeping Denver's defense honest throughout the contest. Denver finished with 445 total yards on 65 snaps, paced by Nick's passing yards and a productive rushing effort. But 2 turnovers, including an interception that swung momentum, proved costly. Quarterback Bo Nix led the Denver Broncos' offensive effort, completing 28 of 47 passes for 352 yards, throwing 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Denver's passing attack was paced by Courtland Sutton, who caught 6 passes for 86 yards and a touchdown, while R.J. Harvey contributed 71 receiving yards in addition to 50 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. Troy Franklin added 66 receiving yards, Pat Bryant had 42, and Evan Engram recorded 36 yards through the air. Overall, the Broncos amassed 445 total yards, including 344 passing and 101 rushing. But turnovers and missed opportunities in the red zone kept them from mounting a comeback, ultimately falling 34-20 to the Jaguars. Time of possession tilted in Jacksonville's favor, with the Jaguars controlling the ball for 33 minutes and 13 seconds to Denver's 26 minutes 47 seconds. Jacksonville's ability to sustain longer drives, particularly on key third down conversions, kept Denver's offense off the field at pivotal stretches and helped Jacksonville stay ahead on the scoreboard. The Jaguars also held an edge in third down efficiency, converting 8 of 15 opportunities compared with 5 of 14 for the Broncos, a difference that manifested in sustained drives and scoring chances. Denver did manage a 4th down conversion, but it wasn't enough to overcome Jacksonville's offensive balance and defensive takeaways. Penalties played a modest role in the game's flow, with Jacksonville flagged 3 times for 20 yards, and Denver assessed 6 penalties for 61 yards. While neither team was undisciplined by season standards, the Broncos' penalty yards slightly hindered momentum on a few Denver possessions. Defensively, Jacksonville was opportunistic, forcing 2 turnovers and bending but not breaking when Denver threatened. Denver's lone takeaway came via a fumble lost, but Jacksonville's defense limited Denver's red zone effectiveness and held firm in clutch moments. For the Broncos, The loss represented a rare defeat after an 11-game run, and underscored areas for improvement as they head into the postseason. The Jaguars, meanwhile, continued their surge, with their 6th consecutive victory, positioning themselves as a legitimate contender in the AFC and giving their fans a memorable performance on the road. The result stunned many, not simply because Jacksonville won, but because of how they won. Was Denver due for a loss after an improbable 11-game winning streak that seemed almost too good to be true? Or is Jacksonville genuinely that talented and balanced? The Jaguars' combination of efficient quarterback play, timely passing, and a steady rushing attack made it clear they weren't just benefiting from a fluke. They executed in all 3 phases of the game, forcing turnovers, sustaining drives, and keeping Denver off balance. By the final whistle, it was obvious that Jacksonville's victory was no accident, but rather a statement that this team can compete with the league's best on the road. The questions now loom large. How will Denver respond after this setback as they travel to Arrowhead to face the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas in Week 17? And for Jacksonville, is this victory a sign that they are a serious contender for the AFC's top spot? Or is their momentum, like Denver's streak, something that may prove too good to be true or merely overdue? The Jaguars have shown flashes of balance and poise on both sides of the ball, but the upcoming weeks, against elite competition, will reveal whether they can sustain this level and make a legitimate run at the conference's highest seed. The Atlanta Falcons traveled to Glendale, Arizona, in a battle of the birds, in a contest that had no real meaning to it except to finish out the season's schedules. But games like this shows teams important details, including what each team has and what each team needs. In the end, the Falcons beat the Arizona Cardinals 26-19 in their Week 16 matchup, turning in a gritty road win that snapped a long drought in Arizona and extended their modest late-season momentum. Atlanta finished with 342 total yards to Arizona's 320, balancing a steady passing attack with a strong performance from running back Bijan Robinson, who piled up significant yardage both on the ground and through the air. Time of possession was close, with the Falcons holding the ball just slightly more as they managed key drives at crucial moments. After falling behind early, as the Cardinals scored on a field goal and a touchdown, the Falcons rallied, thanks to big plays from Bijan Robinson and timely throws from Kirk Cousins. Robinson's versatility, including a receiving touchdown, helped Atlanta stay in striking distance, and Cousins added a late rushing touchdown that gave the Falcons their first lead. Arizona kept it close with multiple field goals, but a late interception by C.J. Henderson effectively sealed the win for Atlanta. Atlanta's balanced offensive attack produced 342 total yards to Arizona's 320. Atlanta's rushing attack was a key factor, finishing with 152 rushing yards on 37 carries, while the passing game added 190 yards through the air, as Kirk Cousins completed 21 of 35 passes for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns and an interception. On the ground, Tyler Algier led the Falcons with 79 yards, and Bijan Robinson chipped in 76 rushing yards, also adding 92 receiving yards and a touchdown, giving him 168 scrimmage yards in the game. The Cardinals also gained 132 rushing yards and 188 passing yards, with quarterback Jacoby Brissett throwing for 203 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Atlanta's balanced yardage and timely scoring on the ground and through the air helped them control key drives and secure the win in a competitive contest. Turnovers and execution in key situations proved to be the difference. While the Cardinals repeatedly stalled in the red zone and settled for 3 points instead of touchdowns, the Falcons converted more of their opportunities into scoring drives and avoided critical mistakes. With the victory, Atlanta not only snapped its long road win drought in Arizona, but also picked up its second straight win, giving the team momentum as it closes out the season. Sunday Night Football featured a highly anticipated clash at M&T Bank Stadium between the New England Patriots and Baltimore Ravens. On this Sunday night, the Patriots staged a dramatic 28-24 comeback victory over the Baltimore Ravens to clinch a coveted postseason berth and deal a serious blow to Baltimore's playoff hopes. The back-and-forth matchup lived up to its billing, with lead changes, big plays, injuries, and a late-game turnover deciding the outcome in one of the AFC's most pivotal Week 16 contests. It would be fair to say this was a game of 2 halves, as the first half was tied 10-10 at halftime, and the Patriots won the second half 18-14. From the opening kickoff, the Ravens struck first and looked poised to control early. Baltimore's offense, led by Lamar Jackson, orchestrated an efficient series that culminated in a 21-yard touchdown run by Derrick Henry to make it 7-0 in the first quarter. Jackson, who entered the night battling nagging injuries, was sharp early, completing 7 of 10 passes for 101 yards and scrambling twice before his exit. New England answered in the second quarter behind rising star Drake May, who orchestrated a methodical drive before connecting with Hunter Henry on a 1-yard touchdown pass to tie the game. The Patriots added a 45-yard field goal before halftime to take a 10-7 lead. Baltimore responded late in the half with a 36-yard Tyler Loop field goal, knotting the score at 10-10 at intermission. The first half also featured significant adversity. Jackson suffered a back injury late in the second quarter and did not return, forcing backup Tyler Huntley into action. Meanwhile, New England lost key contributors, including rookie running back Trevayon Henderson with a head injury and defensive tackle Joshua Farmer, hamstring, sidelining both for the remainder of the game. After halftime adjustments, both defenses settled in briefly, but the Ravens reclaimed the lead in the third quarter when Zay Flowers scored on an 18-yard end-around, giving Baltimore a 17-13 advantage. Baltimore's defense also forced a fake punt stop near midfield, keeping momentum with the home team. Early in the fourth quarter, Derrick Henry powered in a 2-yard touchdown to extend Baltimore's lead to 24-13, putting the Ravens in control. Henry was outstanding all evening, finishing with 128 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on 18 carries, anchoring a Ravens ground attack that totaled 171 rushing yards. But New England, led by May's career night, refused to fold. May completed 31 of 44 passes for 380 yards, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, spreading the ball to playmakers like Stephon Diggs, who caught 9 balls for 138 yards, and Kyle Williams with 2 catches, 46 yards, and 1 touchdown. In the fourth quarter, May hit Williams on a 37-yard touchdown strike, and then found Ramondre Stevenson for a successful 2-point conversion to cut Baltimore's lead to 24-21. With 2 minutes and 7 seconds left, the Patriots completed their comeback on an 89-yard drive, capped by a 21-yard touchdown run by Stevenson, giving New England a 28-24 lead. A subsequent Ravens possession ended in disaster when Zay Flowers fumbled, and the Patriots were able to run out the clock on the ensuing drive. The Patriots dominated in several key statistical categories. New England finished with 453 total yards to Baltimore's 330 and edged the Ravens in time of possession, 31 minutes and 49 seconds to 28 minutes and 11 seconds. The Patriots also compiled more first downs, 24-18, and had a slight edge in passing production. Baltimore's rushing attack excelled behind Henry, but the drop-off after Jackson's exit was evident. Turnovers were critical. The Ravens lost the fumble on their final drive, which sealed their fate. The Patriots protected the ball well, while Baltimore was dinged by crucial mistakes. Penalty totals were competitive between both clubs and reflected an intense, physical battle, though neither team was disproportionately hindered by flags. The emotional arc of this game was dramatic. Baltimore built leads in the third and early fourth quarters only to see them evaporate, as New England's offense seized control when it mattered most. The loss dropped Baltimore to 7-8 and jeopardized its playoff hopes, while the Patriots improved to 12-3 and clinched a postseason berth for the first time since 2021. Despite battling adversity and losing Jackson mid-game, the Ravens showed grit, particularly in their rushing attack and defensive stands. Yet the late comeback highlighted the Patriots' resilience and May's growing stature as a clutch performer under center. Under the bright lights of Monday Night Football in Week 16, the San Francisco 49ers and Indianapolis Colts met in a clash that carried very different playoff implications for each franchise, a stark contrast that shaped how each team approached the night. For the 49ers, the game was another step in a season that had already secured a postseason berth, but one in which every win mattered as they chased top seed and home field advantage. But for the Colts, it was a must-win that stood between them and the brink of elimination, an opportunity to keep their fading playoff hopes alive in a season that had seen them unravel after a hot start. From kickoff at Lucas Oil Stadium, San Francisco's offense came to life, riding the precision of Brock Purdy and the versatility of Christian McCaffrey to build momentum early and often as they poured up yardage and points. While Indianapolis, led by veteran Phillip Rivers in his return to the field, fought valiantly but struggled to contain the Niners' balanced attack. San Francisco's total yardage soared well above 400 yards, with Purdy throwing for close to 300 passing yards and 5 touchdown passes to multiple receivers. McCaffrey contributed significant yardage on the ground and through the air to sustain drives, while the Colts managed fewer total yards and leaned on flashes of big plays, but could not match San Francisco's efficiency. Brock Purdy was at the center of the night's narrative, completing the vast majority of his attempts for nearly 300 passing yards and tossing a career-high 5 touchdown passes. Purdy spread the ball brilliantly to multiple playmakers and consistently attacking Indianapolis' secondary with precision. His top targets included tight end George Kittle, who hauled in 7 receptions for 115 receiving yards and a score. Wide receiver Jawan Jennings added 5 catches and 71 yards and a touchdown. McCaffrey led the ground attack with 117 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns to help San Francisco pile up 440 total yards of offense and control the ball for more than 33 minutes of game time. The Colts, led by veteran quarterback Philip Rivers in his return to action, responded with a gritty effort that saw Rivers sharp but unable to throw the deep ball, and finished the night with nearly 280 passing yards and 2 touchdown passes. Both touchdown passes were to wideout Alec Pierce, who collected multiple receptions for close to 90 yards. But Indianapolis' ground game produced fewer than 60 rushing yards. The defense struggled to contain San Francisco's balanced attack, ultimately allowing the Niners to average well over 6 yards per play and keep the score comfortably in their favor. Penalties and turnovers also influenced the flow, with the Colts flagged several times and the 49ers forcing key stops that shifted momentum. And while Indianapolis managed to keep the game competitive in portions of the first half, San Francisco pulled away in the second, tightening its grip on a high NFC seed with the victory, and leaving the Colts' playoff path precariously narrow as their bid for a wildcard berth now teeters on results beyond their control. The 49ers' commanding win not only showcased their offensive firepower, but also bolstered their push for a top seed in the NFC playoffs, not just the top spot in the NFC West, but the entire NFC, giving them valuable momentum as they pivoted toward the final stretch of the regular season. For Indianapolis, the loss dealt a significant blow to their playoff positioning, leaving them precariously close to elimination and facing a shrinking path to the postseason after a promising start to the year. Week 16 of the 2025 NFL season did not disappoint, delivering high-stakes drama, pivotal divisional matchups, and performances that are shaping the playoff picture as the regular season nears its conclusion. With only 2 weeks left before the postseason, every play, every third-down conversion, and every red zone opportunity carries enormous weight. Divisional races are tightening, wildcard berths remain contested, and the margin for error is razor-thin. This is the stage where contenders prove themselves, pretenders falter, and the NFL delivers its most intense, edge-of-your-seat football of the year. Week 16 of the 2025 NFL season was both fun and spectacular, because nearly every game carried high stakes, with playoff spots still up for grabs and divisional races hanging in the balance. The week delivered dramatic comebacks, as teams staged late rallies that showcased resilience, momentum swings, and clutch execution under pressure. Standout individual performances highlighted the action, with quarterbacks throwing precise passes, running backs grinding out tough yardage, and receivers making jaw-dropping catches that shifted games in an instant. Many matchups also featured tactical battles, with clock management, field position strategy, and defensive adjustments playing critical roles in deciding outcomes. Across the league, surprises abounded. Favorites fell, underdogs thrived, and playoff scenarios shifted with every turnover, sack, and fourth-down conversion. In short, Week 16 combined skill, strategy, suspense, and spectacle, delivering the kind of edge-of-your-seat football that makes the NFL so compelling and thrilling for fans everywhere. The games this week highlighted exactly why football is a game of inches and timing. From pressure-packed fourth-quarter drives to game-saving sacks and interceptions, every snap mattered. Teams jockeyed not just for points, but for field position, clock control, and playoff positioning, emphasizing the strategic chess match that makes late-season football so compelling. Breakout rookies made their presence felt, while veteran stars showed why experience and composure are invaluable in tight contests. As Week 16 unfolds, the storylines are clear. No team is untouchable, every game is critical, and execution in crunch time separates playoff contenders from those whose seasons are over. From clutch quarterback throws to defensive stands that swing momentum, the final weeks of the regular season promise to test every team's resilience, depth, and will to win. From all of us here at Diggin Deeper into the NFL, thank you for joining the broadcast. I'm Brian Parsons, wishing you the best as the season races toward its thrilling conclusion. Stay safe, enjoy the games ahead, and God bless.